Welcome to The Who Project. I'm your host, Paul Gittens, where I sit down with leading professionals, artists, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. Each share their definitions of success, past and present, how they differ, if at all, and what milestones they've set for the next chapter of their lives. This isn't just any podcast. It's a celebration of real stories from real people. Together, we'll explore the choices that have shaped their paths, the challenges they've conquered, and how they bravely carved out lives on their own terms. Each episode is a treasure trove of insights, tools, and inspiring tales to help you ignite your own journey. So buckle up and get ready for some great conversations. I have the honor of introducing Nikki Stone, the recently appointed Chief Commerce Officer at Group M Canada. Group M has 3 of the top 5 global media agencies and controls more than $60 billion in annual media spend. With partners like Google, Meta, and Amazon, it's safe to say Group M is a major force on the global advertising stage. Nikki's name has a Hollywood ring to it. Over the past 12 years, she has been in the advertising agency side. Her star has shined bright. With roles spanning from VP of Business Development, SVP, EVP, Managing Director, CEO, and now CCO. She is a keynote speaker and most recently has been recognized as Marketer to Watch in 2024 by Marketing News Canada. Whenever I mention Nikki's name to people in the industry, they say, I love Nikki. She's a people-first leader, or she's incredibly smart, driven, hardworking, and ethical. And those who haven't had the pleasure of meeting her say, I would love to meet Nikki. I hear such great things about her. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my friend, the one and the only Nikki Stone, to the Legacy Podcast. Welcome, Nikki.
Thank you, Paul. I'm excited to be here today.
You know, I've had the pleasure of getting to know you over the past 4 years, right? I think we first started just right in the pandemic, obviously, right? And, you know, I've watched you, I've listened to you, and I say that you have an energy level that's on a different frequency altogether. Like, I don't even know where you find this energy. It is unbelievable. So I know that life is busy. We're talking about just before we recorded how busy life is. So the one thing I want to say to you this morning is I appreciate you sharing, your time with us and being a part of the Legacy Podcast. So I remember when I first shared the concept of legacy with you, you immediately got it. That's the thing that I love. It's like, boom, right? And again, that just speaks to, the truths about you, right? And how intelligent you are. But I think beyond that, it's just like your curiosity, right? About people. And I think you really saw that there was an importance of documenting, what people have, accomplished and achieved that happen to be first and second generation Canadians, right? Specifically, I told you it was for West Indian Canadians, right? But at that point in my legacy journey, I hadn't figured out that it could go beyond that. And when I did, it's when I was speaking to my Italian and my Jewish friends, right? And they started telling me that, their first Canadian experience. And I was like, wow, like I always thought, I'm an island on one here, right? Like this only happened to us, right? I only feel this way. And when they opened up and they became transparent with me through conversation just about their lives, I thought, wow, this is amazing. And then when I was talking to you and you shared with me, right, that you are half Indigenous. And I thought to myself, whoa, wait a second. Like this could really open up, right? Because it's no longer about being first or second generation Canadian, whether you're West Indian or Jewish or Italian, it doesn't matter, right? I think what really became evident to me was people that have been marginalized and racialized in this country. And it didn't have to be just within first or 1 or 2 generations. And that's when it became really important to me. And that's why, honestly, I wanted to have you on the show. When you shared that with me, I was like, oh, damn, I have to have Nikki Stone on the show. So what I shared in that conversation with you is, what I thought was the importance of having first and second generation Canadians or West Indian Canadians. What I didn't share was the why behind my why, right? And that why behind my why really goes back to, like, in my mind, why did I feel like it was important to not only to celebrate these individuals, but it came back to like why I felt about myself, right? And how I was feeling a lack of fulfillment, how I wanted my kids to have a different, you know,
Mm.
point of view on life. And that's really the truth, of why I started Legacy, or the idea, the concept to start there is because I felt, it would be lost in the history books. It wasn't going to be documented. And this was a digitized library where we could celebrate lives. And that's, my God, like that's when it just really all came into focus for me. And then I started thinking about, a fulfillment matrix and how do I put all of these pieces together, right? Because you and I talk about that, right? Like that's how our minds work, right? Like how do I break this down and build it back up? And I did it, and I want to get into that with you. But before I do, I think it's just really important that the people start to really get a frame of who you are. So I really like to talk a little bit about your background.
Sure, but first I just want to say the why before the why was always transparent to me. You
Was it?
didn't, yeah, it was
Oh
because
wow, okay.
in all of our interactions since the day we met, you've always talked about your family, the importance of your family, the importance of getting it right for the next generation.
Mm,
That's always been part of those conversations and probably part of the reason that you and I became friends, because that was always something that really mattered to me.
mm.
And albeit mostly for the same reasons, we just never talked about why we had the same MO.
Huh. I listen. Well, again, you're very intuitive, right? Because clearly I didn't say it or didn't articulate it. But truth, you know, for me, it's like a heavy burden to carry, right? And the reason I look at it as a heavy burden to carry, and I would say this to my kids, and Jay's here and he's doing the recording. So, Jay's life is, than how we raised him. There's a different version of like, say, Cole and Justine, right? Because we were much younger. But I just always remember saying
I
like,
have a similar age gap in my
yeah,
kids.
right? Yeah, so you're a much different person, right? Than who you are today. And that's just, life and maturity and life experience. But I always said like, you guys have to do better than we did, right? And I always looked at like what my grandparents did, right? Leaving a tiny island, of probably back then just sub 200,000 people, right? And traveling to Britain and starting life there, and then my parents going there, and then them in their late 30s leaving Britain and coming to Canada, right? And starting life anew again with no reference of, what's happening, community wise or job
Winter
wise. What's that?
or winter.
Or winter. Yeah, exactly. So I always look at this as like such a heavy burden for me because if they've done what they've done, what am I supposed to do? Right? What am I supposed to do? And I struggle as a Libra. I struggle to
Mhm.
balance in my head, right? Like how much pressure do I want to put on my kids because I just decided I was going to take that on for myself, So it's one of those weird things. Where were we?
Mhm.
We were talking about you being part Indigenous. You want to frame that up for me? Mom's side, dad's side. What does that look like?
So it's my biological father's side
Okay.
that is Indigenous. So they're Métis on both sides. Funny enough, both my grandparents were Métis. That's I obviously was not raised by my biological father, hence the
Yeah.
token, but the
Yeah.
the phrase there. But I was instead raised by my mother, who's Italian, and a British man.
Wow. Okay.
It's a very unique experience.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. See what happens? Like you could say you know somebody, but you don't really know somebody until you really start asking those questions. So where were you born?
I was born in Grand Prairie, Alberta, and then raised mostly in kind of like the Bronx of Niagara Falls.
Okay.
If you can imagine that, I know when most people think about Niagara, they think about the touristy area,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there's a lot outside of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
And then in about, I think it was 1990, my parents were married and we moved to the quote, air quote, nice area of Niagara.
Okay.
And then I spent most of my time growing up after that in Niagara on the Lake.
So how old were you when you came to Ontario?
I was really young. I don't remember it.
Okay.
So young enough for that. No one's ever given me a firm a firm date. I have to believe had to be before 2.
Okay. So, and that was just you and your mom moving?
And my sister.
Okay. Okay. So then dad was left behind and you guys came out to Ontario.
I don't know where my father was in that picture,
Okay.
or where they were in their relationship at that point, but he was definitely not in the picture. And yeah, we came back to Ontario. My mom was raised in Niagara-on-the-Lake, so hence why that sort of became the stomping ground for her to
Okay.
come home.
Okay.
And yeah, settled there until I was 17, and then I moved to Toronto.
So tell me about your childhood. Were you a happy child?
No, I was not. And I was telling you before this, and when I was telling my kids what I was doing today, they actually said to me, Mom, are you going to be honest about your childhood? And I said, yeah, I was going to be. And listen, I've once had my kids apologize for my childhood. So when they've seen snippets of things. So no, I wasn't necessarily a happy child. That doesn't mean I'm not happy. But when I look back on my childhood, I was raised by a single mom. My mom worked 24 hours a day. She was a barber, and she was starting a business with my dad, who raised me. When I was 3, I think they started the business. So she was gone all the time.
So sorry, let me ask you this question. Are you the eldest?
No, I'm the youngest.
Okay.
Well, that's not entirely true. I'm the youngest of the 2 that my mom had.
Okay.
There are other siblings on my biological father's side.
Right. So you've got some
and that makes me somewhere in the middle, I guess. But
yeah, okay. Okay. All right. All right. Fair enough. So mom was gone. It's interesting because this is, I believe, number 13 of the podcast that we recorded, and some of my good friends I didn't even know this about were framing up this exact same story, right? Like single, right? Working all the time.
First generation. She was first generation.
Yeah.
One of her only, so I think there were 6 siblings. Several passed away before the family came to Canada and Italy. And then her and her siblings were born here. So she was one of the firstborn and didn't speak English because on the farm, they were chicken farmers, they didn't speak a lick of English. So, she got as far as she could into schooling, and then she had to start making money. So she dropped out at some point and went to hairdressing school and became a barber. And yeah, I can only imagine what that journey was like. She doesn't talk about it often, but I can only imagine what that journey was like. And then being a single mom and what that meant as she was starting to try and open up like swimwear stores. My parents owned a chain of swimwear stores. They still have one today as my parents are working their way towards retirement. But I was raised by a lot of babysitters in those early years.
So how did that leave you feeling? Like, did you feel abandoned? Were you angry about that? Or did you see and try to rationalize at that time? Like, I guess this is just the way it is. Like, how did it work for you?
Well, I mean, the thing is I can only remember one of my neighbors having 2 parents. So like, when I joke, it was like the Bronx. Like, if I can vaguely remember like one of the parents who would see all the kids off to school in the morning, because we would walk as kind of a group to school, saying like, if the hookers are still out, cut through the cemetery on your way to school. Like that kind of, right? Yeah. So like that was not an anomaly to see.
Yeah.
And I remember my one neighbor, Kenny, had both parents. And that wasn't a great situation either, based on our houses were fairly close together and what you could hear. But, that everyone had single parents. And the parents that were there were the ones who had a lot of kids, and government assistance wasn't going to help them like get a real job at that point. So it wasn't abnormal. You kind of just, it's funny because the community kind of took care of each other. If they saw the kids out, everyone kind of watched each other's kids, or you watched out for each other. So there was some, like I said, it wasn't all bad because you really got a sense of community. But I don't know that it left me feeling abandoned. I think actually where life got more difficult was when we left that area. And when we moved to the quote, quote, nicer area of town, which was very important to my dad because he wanted us to have a better life. And that was a decision that they made. And it was a very difficult decision, obviously, to move to a nicer neighborhood. My mom actually owned a house, albeit not in the greatest neighborhood, but to be a single mom who owned a house, that was like, And she paid, I think, 22.5% interest on her mortgage. I remember hearing that over the years. So that was not easy for her. And then they moved us and they said, okay, you're living here now and it's this nice area. But what I think made it much more difficult is I knew how to fit in, right? There was diversity in my neighborhood. Everyone was kind of the same, right? Everyone had single parents. Everybody came from a blended family. Everybody had maybe more than one, dad or something in the family situation, or more than one mom in the situation. Everyone was either mixed or new to the country or something like. So you kind of didn't feel different until we moved. And then it stood out. And I didn't realize that at the time.
What stood out though?
That I was different.
Different how? From a social economic standpoint?
From a social economic standpoint. Because remember, at this point, so let me backtrack. At this point, my family was still passing me as white because I was of sort of the, okay, I'll go back even further, I think. So as I understand things now, because I tried over the years to poke around a bit, my grandfather on my biological father's side, when he came back from the war, he had switched out dog tags with his bunkmate who had passed away in the war. And he came home underneath the assumed last name of Cassidy, but we were not actually like, I was born a Cassidy.
But
Cassidy. They were not because they were still living on the reserve. And he came home underneath an assumed name, took the whole family off the reserve and moved from Quebec to either Ontario or Alberta, somewhere along the way. And they were passing as white. So it was very important to the family. And so my mom would never tell me my background, but it was very obvious, especially as a younger child, that I was much darker and shaped very differently than most people, and that I grew up with. And I had a lot of questions about that, but no, I was told I was Irish. They're like, you're Italian and Irish. And I was like, I don't look like the Irish people, but okay. And so when we moved in 1990, it became very apparent that there was a social economic barrier that this is the first time we're living with a man, that in my knowledge, in my memory. He's a white man, a very British, raised like first generation also, but very British white man. And even though he grew up like a hippie people, and very open-minded, there was still a lot of that, in there. And I was maybe one of two BIPOC people in the whole school and in my neighborhood, which funny enough today looks very different when I go there, but there was something uniquely different and it stood out.
Now, when you say it stood out, did it stand out to you or were the kids telling you?
It stood out to me, especially because everybody came from like the 2.5 white picket fence family in this neighborhood. There was a lot of Jessicas and Jennifers, and I have no discredit to those names. I have great friends with those names today. But
I know what you're saying.
But there was a lot of very, yes, that's exactly it. There was a lot of very proper
Anglo-Saxon.
Yes. Yeah, in that neighborhood, and they were not first generation.
So can I ask you a question? And I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but what I'm going to ask you is like, where were you in 1990? Were you like, is this high school time now for you, or is this middle school time for you? Like, where'd you fit in here? Grade 7, 8,
grade 4, maybe.
Okay.
It was grade 4.
Okay. So now, what's that? 8?
Yes,
somewhere
8
around
or
there,
9.
Right? 8 or 9 years old, right? Wow. So that's a lot. That's a lot for an 8 or 9-year-old. And I know that to be true because I've lived that, right? So I know it's a lot to carry. Wow. I'm just trying to digest how you carry that, like, did the kids bully you? Did they make you feel different?
Oh yeah, I was terribly bullied. Terribly bullied. In fact, in grade 7, I left that school and went to a school in a different city because it had gotten so bad that it was like crippling. I was crippled with anxiety and depression. And
what would they tell you? Like, because I mean, To me, it's 1990. Yeah, and I know 1990 was, yeah, it wasn't much different than today. But when I see you, when I look at you, right, I would think to myself, like, why would they be bullying you?
So some reasons. I was a bit of a jock. I played a lot of sport and I love sport and I still like being active today. I grew, and again, in the neighborhood I grew up in before that, I was one of two girls, my sister being the other girl, and her and I were very different. So I naturally got along with boys because that's
Yeah,
what was in my
yeah,
neighborhood.
yeah,
And the boys in my neighborhood were very protective of me. So I also saw that as, you know, as a protection
sure,
type of thing because they would make sure when I walked to school I was
yeah,
okay and
yeah.
all of these things. So it was like having, I say, 18 older brothers. Also made me terribly undateable for a long time. Um, but it was, yeah. So the girls didn't like that because in this neighborhood, by grade 4, they already had boyfriends, they already had girlfriends, like they were already sort of coupled.
So you're this outsider coming
I'm
in.
this outsider coming in, and now I'm playing with all the boys. And the girls didn't like that.
Mm,
I was hanging out with their
yeah,
boyfriends.
yeah,
And so I tried to fit in, and that meant I had a new boyfriend every week, I felt like, because I had no idea how to have a boyfriend in grade 4, nor do I think I should have
yeah,
had
yeah.
any idea how to have a boyfriend in
Right,
grade 4.
right.
And and then you would get really cutty comments from like the teachers about it.
Mm,
And that we're probably trying to do the right thing and be like, it's okay to be you, show some self-respect, like,
yeah,
be trying to tell me to be okay with who
yeah,
I was, but that's not how it came across because etiquette training wasn't a thing back then. Diversity training wasn't a thing back then. It was just some white dude who couldn't make it as a salesperson who decided to be a teacher. Literally, that's what he told my parents, who, would just make these sort of offhanded comments. And then so it was like, well, I don't fit in with the Jessicas and the Jennifers, and everyone was blonde.
mm.
And I think there was one or two Italian girls in the school, so they, had darker hair. But that was really it. I think that we had one Asian person in the school. Like it was me and one Asian person.
It's part of my ignorance, but I always thought that there was a significant Italian population in Niagara Falls.
There is,
Okay,
just not in the neighborhood in
not
which
where
I
you are.
lived.
Okay, okay.
Uh,
So then you said you left in grade 7 and went to grade 8 and went to a different school, and then that obviously fed you into high school, right? So you left. So it's like you left with those people from middle school and went to high school with them.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yes, I did. Grade 9. So, a lot of it still followed me because one person found out from one school where I was going and phoned some friends on a mutual volleyball team. So, it didn't leave me. By the time I was in grade 9, I had a friend that, in a very unfortunate situation, passed away. And I was dealing with that and some new challenges that were coming up in the social scene with like some people, like, the drug scene started to
Yeah.
really form. And that wasn't for me because I had seen that.
Yeah.
I grew
Yeah.
up in the
Yeah.
Bronx.
Yeah.
I knew what that scene looked
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to go back there.
Mm,
And, and so then I left again. I left that high school after grade 9. And this is when I went to Niagara on the Lake and spent my grade 10 through 12 years in Niagara on the Lake.
was that a better
That was
experience?
a way better experience because the socioeconomic, so even though I was in Niagara on the Lake, there's a lot of farmers.
Yeah.
And there's no high school now at Niagara on the Lake, but the high school that I went to at the time you had Mormon, because there's a lot of big Mormon community
Yeah.
in Niagara on the Lake.
Okay.
You still didn't have the diversity in the high school. There was like, again, maybe one or two people that were BIPOC.
Mm.
At this point, again, I'm still passing as white, although very much trying to figure out my lineage at this point. Like I was very curious at this point and asking all of the inconvenient questions to my family, which did not go over well. And yeah, but I met two really great friends, still lifelong friends to this day. One is my best friend and the reason I'm in the market and is in the industry today that I'm in.
Nice.
And the other one is actually now in the industry as well, which is funny. But he came up through, what was it? Like hospitality side.
Okay.
And, I think they just made it better. There was some other friends in there too, but the two of them stayed very much lifelong friends. We even lived together through part of university. and college and things. And my kids like call them auntie and uncle. And
It's beautiful. That's beautiful. Let me walk you back a little bit though, because I'm still a little curious. Why, even as a teenager, was your mother still holding on to not telling you the truth?
and that was a promise that she had made to him. I now understand that he would stay like he decided to stay sort of out of my life, even though he was involved in my sister's life, even though he had other kids, because he thought I was good. And
When you say good, what do you mean?
I was being raised by this other man, and my life on paper, in his eyes,
Got it.
seemed better.
Yeah, no need to
than,
complex it, to make it more
Yeah,
complex. Okay, I got
right.
it.
So
Yeah.
he thought I was okay. He was like, I'm best to stay away.
But you just said that he would speak to your sister.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, my sister lived with him for a long time as well. So then I was partially an only child in that. And yeah, it was very bizarre.
How much older is she?
2 years.
Wow. So it's not like there's a big gap or anything.
No.
Okay. Did your father's no longer with you?
No. He passed away when I was, I want to say 26.
Did you get a chance to form a relationship with him?
Not really. When I was 17, my friend Mark, the Uncle Mark, as my kids refer to him still to this day. And so oh my God, if my parents ever hear this. So after our graduation and sort of like prom night and whatever, we were going camping, a bunch of our friends. And Mark hung back with me because I had tracked down my father, my biological father at this point. And we were going to meet our friends camping, but we stopped to see him first. So I'm 17.
Where was he?
And he was in Niagara Falls, but like far on the outskirts of Niagara, so like into the countryside.
Okay.
And we living
Okay.
at this point. So at this point, I now knew he was in the city that I was living in.
Yeah.
And went and tracked him down, and I just wanted to know about my heritage. That was the only question I had for him, and he wouldn't tell me. He was like, I think maybe we're Irish and whatever. And I'd seen him a couple of times over the years, and it was very apparent we were not Irish to me, but he was still sort of hiding behind this guise. And he was married, and he adopted 2 of her kids, and they had 2 more kids together. So like the family was there, and it was it became very apparent after an hour and a half of me like trying to like just tell me the truth that I was not going to get the truth. So Mark and I left, and we went camping with our friends and continued on. And as 17-year-old teenagers do, drank far too much wine and ate mac and cheese at a campsite.
Well, my heart feels heavy because I think I'm rationalizing this. Correct me if I'm wrong. But somehow in their mind, they thought that they were protecting you from something.
Well, they were. And so the year I was born was one of the last years that the Indigenous school system, the Catholic schools existed. So there was whether the reasons why my grandfather did what he did were right or wrong or pure or not is not for me to make judgment over. Right. But my life today, albeit I said no to my childhood being great, it was far, far better than what it should have been.
So what you're saying is that you would have gone in that stream.
Yes.
That's where you would have ended up.
So there was a clear reason.
Even if you're half?
Because we still lived on that part of the family still lived on the reserve. So he took them all off the reserve.
Yeah.
And so, yes, like they were coming for Indigenous kids. So you pretended, if you just like Black people did. There's entire documentaries and movies and everything else. If you were white enough.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you think back to slavery times, whenever women would get impregnated by their masters and have very white looking babies, but they were Black.
Yeah.
They would give up their kids at a young age to pass as white.
Yeah.
That was no different from my experience. I was passing just like my Black friends were.
Wow.
But didn't know. I didn't, right? They didn't know. We didn't know. We were all just like, but we're clearly not white, right? Like we are clearly We are clearly not shaped like that.
So they're keeping this secret so close to the chest because they knew they wanted to protect their family.
Yes. And my mom, I guess, at some point had made that promise with my family to respect that. So, and in there, I want to just be clear, like my dad who raised me, he was very pro-Indigenous. He learned everything there was about Indigenous people. He brought me to Brock's Monument often. Like he tried really hard
Yeah, that's beautiful.
to educate me without telling me.
Right.
Even though, like I said, by far, he was still a white man. He was still a British man, and he still is to this day, obviously. So even though, but he really tried because he knew what he knew, but he knew he wasn't allowed to say anything. So he figured at this point, at least when you do find out, you can be proud of who you are.
Now like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, so tell me about your high school. But now you're telling, when did you confirm?
After my biological father passed away.
Okay. So how old were you then?
26.
26. Okay, great. Wow. So that's like 17 when you saw him. And
I didn't see him again until he was passed away.
Okay. So then how did it come to fruition? How did it come to light?
So my uncle, so I guess in the Indigenous status process, there is an opportunity to note any descendants that they should be aware of. And my uncle, now that my father had passed away, I think probably broke some promises to him and noted my name down. And that's how I found out, was I got a note from the government.
No, do not. That's how you found out?
That's how I found out.
You got a letter.
Yeah.
In the mail that said,
snail mail.
That said, you are,
like, we believe that if you've been identified and at the time I just sort of buried it. I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, so at this point now I'm married, not to my current husband. It's not a great situation. And I really didn't know how to handle it. So I just buried it.
Did you say anything to your mom?
No, I said nothing.
You said you buried it. You buried it.
I buried it. It was like, I'm not, I didn't necessarily at this point know all the reasons why, but I knew it just wasn't the time for me to talk about that. And I didn't talk about it until I was 30, now getting divorced, pregnant with my eldest son. And really just didn't say anything. I'd never checked the box on any of my nothing. I never was like, I just minata, buttoned up. I don't even think I even admitted it professionally until just before the pandemic.
No.
Yeah. I think at some point when I worked active, Andrew Ballmer, very nice man, by the way, who's the lead there for Canada still to this day, had asked me something about it because I think it was apparent to him that I wasn't pure white, and I neither confirmed nor denied anything. And then when I was at Publicis, funny enough, there was a lot of things happening at that point in time around Black Lives Matter and things like that.
George Floyd, all that stuff, yeah.
I had a very diverse team at the time. Still always do. It's an important thing for me. It's always been important to me, even within my friendship circles and things like that. I always felt very at home in a very diverse group.
This is all coming so clear to me now, like who you are.
This is the first time I'm ever telling this full story. So if I get emotional, I'm sorry.
Well, we'll get you some tissues if you want to.
You may need to. Give me a sec. But I had this like crazy diverse team, and we didn't know what to do with Black Lives Matter.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
So we started this initiative, and it's funny because this is how we met.
Yeah.
Which was called Walk the Talk. And we were this small little team still because we were new. I think we were in our first official year of this division launching. And we just had this small little team, but we were very mixed. And we just started this thing that was called Walk the Talk because we didn't know what else to do. And what we could control, we work in the media industry, what we could control was who we supported with our dollars. So, and this is like pre-CNBC manifesto. This is like right before all of this is even a thing. We just were like, where do we see diverse talent on air? Where do we see, and we started asking a lot of very inconvenient questions about ownership, about why in a predominantly Black-led or multiculturally led sort of sport like basketball is there only white reporters? Like, how do we start to spend our money and tell the broadcasters that this is important? And I remember it was very uncomfortable. We got a lot of phone calls. My bosses got a lot of phone calls. They stood behind me. I was ever so grateful for that. Also white. So like to have that support and believe though in their core that what we were doing was the right thing to do and just give us the bandwidth to do that. You don't get that often.
No.
And I just remember at that point, one of the girls on my team she was on the team. She's no longer on that team, but she is Black and Indigenous.
Okay.
And she said, what's your stake in this? She's like, what's your stake in this?
Yeah. Do you have a dog in this fight?
like you're doing all of this and thank you. We appreciate you. But what's your stake? And I said, I need to do better for my kids. I need them to be okay with who they are.
That's it. Wow.
And then I started talking about who I was.
Wow. That took a lot of strength.
It did. But at this point in my life, by this point in my life, I had such an amazing husband and he's so supportive that I didn't worry about fighting the fight. And I think that's the big difference today with most people is I no longer felt like I had to worry if I lost my job or that I could get a new job or something along that lines, or that he could take care of us if I blacklisted myself and now needed to go into a whole new career. Like,
so did you think that was even a possibility for you by coming out and saying that?
No.
Okay.
Like, I remember having to go home and have a conversation about it and be like, babe, I'm going to do something and it's going to piss a lot of people off.
Right.
And I just don't know how not to now.
Mm-hmm. He's a solid dude, that guy.
Solid dude.
Yeah.
Solid dude.
Shout out to, should I say his name?
Yeah, absolutely.
Shout out to Eric. Solid dude.
Solid dude.
Yeah. Wow. So you had your back.
And my back.
So you were empowered to step out and let the world know, who you are, right? Because that was the question. What's the stake in the game? And then to really put accountability, right? Accountability to people that had lacked accountability for, very, very, very long time.
Absolutely. And it was interesting because at the same time then and I will give some props to the company I worked for because they started saying, okay, if this is the case, how do we make sure that we have enough diversity at our leadership that is reflective of the Canadian population and started actually paths for that. And then some really cool people like David Roosley and some people that he's associated with. He worked with me at the time, different division, same company. And he was starting things like Super Club and these initiatives that, he was also having these very inconvenient conversations. And it was beautiful. It was really quite beautiful because you kind of felt like for once, okay, I had the backing, I had the support, I had the empowerment to fight the fight. And so it became, if not now, then when, and if not me, then who?
Right. So it must have felt like an incredible weight was lifted off your shoulders, right? Like, so now you could truly be your authentic self.
Yes.
Right.
And it's funny because people will say to me, like, what do you think is the greatest part of your success? What do you think really started to define that and what have you? And And because of everything we've already talked about in my younger years, I was socially awkward, still slightly socially awkward. I don't think I'll ever lose that. I was definitely a nerd. I was a bit of a jock though. And you didn't really fit the mold any which way, but I was hardworking and I had teachers that backed me. And now I had bosses that were willing to back me because of those things. And so it wasn't just about like, hey, I could be myself. People were deliberately trying to make space for me to be myself. And it's because I could be myself and I was asking difficult questions and I was proposing difficult solutions that people started recognizing me in the work I was doing professionally.
Right.
Because they were like, oh, that actually does matter. And that's actually driving change in how we look at things.
So can I ask you a question then? Do you think that receiving that letter, would you say that was a catalyst, that it would have started that momentum or taking you towards that path? The letter that identified you.
Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't that, I was at some point, I knew I was going to know.
What was the match? Maybe that lit the fire, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
And whether or not I held that match for a long time. I just didn't light it for a long time. I just finally had the match and was like,
So walk me back. I'm gonna skip back for a bit because I want to go from, high school, right? And then clearly you said, correct me if I'm wrong, that you left home at like 17?
Yeah.
So
where I was barely living at this point anyway. Like I was, from the time I was 12 to 17, I was mostly at my Nona's house.
Okay.
Things were no bueno at the house front.
So was that with, just the dynamics of your sister, your mom, and your dad, right? It was just not, you guys just weren't getting along. Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of tumultuousness in
that's fair.
In there.
So, and we don't have to get into that. We can check that and say, okay, that's where you were. That was your, that was your circumstance at that time. But you found your way, right? As a 17-year-old did you go to college first and then university,
yes,
as I understand it? So like, how do you, again, like, I'm just trying to set the stage to really, to understand where this strength comes from. Because it sounds to me like you're an incredibly strong, well, I knew this, but now that you're telling me more of this backstory, an extremely strong woman.
So I get to Toronto. I'm 17 years old. I rent a basement apartment room, not a full apartment, just a room, because that's what I could afford. It was $300 a month. You can imagine what the conditions were like.
17 years old. What part of town was that? Tell me.
It was Scarborough.
Okay. Pick up the Scarbs.
And East End.
Where in Scarborough? Can I ask? Because I grew up in Scarborough, so I'm just curious.
It was near the Bluffs, which were certainly not the Bluffs that they are today.
Yeah.
This is 1999 at this point.
Okay.
And I get to Toronto. I'm in this terrible basement apartment room. The woman who lives there smokes 2 to 3 packs a day. She's got a few Pomeranians, so there's dog hair everywhere. And the guy that shares the basement with me loved to keep all of his dirty dishes piled up in his room. So you can imagine the smell that came out of there. A few months later, I leave there. I get a different apartment, I had a roommate. And the next year, my 2 best friends moved to Toronto and we rent a house together. But that first year that I was here, I met my very first friend in Toronto, still a friend today. She was my maid of honor at my wedding to Eric. And her name is Margaret. And was also an immigrant she was an immigrant to Canada from Poland. And when she was young and made friends with her and a couple of other immigrants to Canada and a couple of Jamaican guys. Justice was one of my favorite and whatever. And I found sort of this posse of people that no one asked me questions about where I came from or everything else. Everyone just got like it. My black friends were like, "You're not white." My and just sort of like accepted me and taught me so much. But
you're all carrying the same weight.
All carrying the same weight.
Yeah.
A couple of Asian friends, this guy Kevin and like whatever. And like just, it was the first time in my life where I felt at ease.
Mm-hmm.
And
So are you going to school at that time?
I'm going to school. I'm at Centennial College studying international business management.
And you're obviously working?
I am working 3 jobs because I have no student loans, I have no parental backing, and I have no ability to get OSAP because my parents are self-employed. So I'm here on my own and paying my own tuition, paying my own rent, paying everything, my own car, like, which was almost as old as I was.
Yeah.
And just grinding it out best I could. So I would bartend, I would work 44 hours a week retail, and bartend, and then pick up some catering shifts or things like that on the side.
Were you talking to your mom, dad, sister during this time?
I
Or are you
have
more
not
estranged?
talked to my sister in the vast majority of my adult life.
Okay.
But I still talk to my parents and we're still fine. My dad has actually been staying with us on and off because he had a stroke recently, and
Right.
just as he needs to go through like rehab
Yeah.
and stuff. So
Right.
so I'm still chatting with them, but my parents at this point were not happy with me because I had moved away and I was no longer free labor for them in the stores where I spent all of my childhood eating out of a stockroom and
Got it.
those types of things.
Got
But I
it.
even worked 3 jobs in high school. So again, that's probably why my teachers didn't think I was on like the gravy train with all of the, some of the other kids.
So what did you
Um,
study at school?
I studied international business management
Okay.
in college, my minor was cross-cultural negotiations, and in university, it was both cross-cultural negotiations and marketing.
So can I ask you a question? Throughout your entire education, like were you a good student, like as a child, middle school? Again,
No.
I'm setting this up because I'm really trying to figure out like where you're getting all this momentum, all this strength, right? Because now you're admitting to me that you weren't a great student. So like,
But it wasn't for lack of effort.
Okay.
So, okay, let me back to, so my dad was basically a scientist who raised me, like my dad, and worked in a lab as a pharmaceutical engineer type of person. And so he cared about math and science.
Right.
So no surprise that I'm a math and science nerd today. That's where that came from. So I was good in math and science because that was his requirement. However, my mom, as I said, she didn't speak English on the farm. So she really struggled to read and write in English.
Right.
And so nobody looked at my English.
Right.
And so I probably got into college. And when I got to college, they made me take English as a second language to start because my entrance exam, I couldn't type, right? Like I still had, even though it was before like Google, you still had a computer and it still had spell check.
Yeah.
So you couldn't, because you had to go write it in person.
Yeah.
Well, that was a problem for me. So I bombed that part of my entrance exam, but they saw all the rest of my scores and were like, maybe it's the English, maybe she doesn't speak English as a first language.
Sure.
So I was the only passing as white kid in the
ESL class.
Yeah. And in college, though. And so I'd gotten away with reading at probably a grade 5 or 6 level throughout, but I would just very slowly, and that was the problem, have to like read the same thing like 6 or 7 times in order to really process it because I didn't have the same comprehension in high school. But when it came to math and sciences, like my last semester of high school was like calculus, algebra, finite, because I was like easy A's. It's going to get me into school.
Wow.
And that's what I was focusing on and was just getting out of Dodge. Like, what's my ticket out of Dodge? And it's going to be through education.
Right.
And so I muscled my way through college. And then one of my teachers knew at the time I wanted to be a lawyer and said, okay, like, let me help you get the university thing sort of tied up for you.
Right.
And told me about the program where I could use my college credits as part of my university credits now. And there were a few sister agents, so Ryerson and then University of Sydney. Western Sydney was the other one where they had affiliate programs. So I decided to move to Australia. And
she just slipped that one in, folks.
Yeah. And at this point in time, by the way, I moved to Australia. It's the black ban in Australia had just it was like 10 years old, coming out of the black ban that Australia had. And so again, passing very much as white because there was nobody else. Like,
Yeah.
the other two people on campus, my girlfriend Tara, who was half brown, and one other Canadian kid that was there, were like the only people who, like, maybe one or two other Indian guys that I became friends with. Like, but that was it. There was, like, again, no diversity here. So
Yeah.
I went back, and that was sort of like felt like I was going back in time for myself.
Yeah. But you felt comfortable though in that with these band of people, right? Because it's just what you've been used to as a child.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was fine. And then, I spent a few years there. It was a great time in my life.
Wow. So you see, what's remarkable for me is where you found that strength, right?
When failure is not an option.
I hear that. It's so funny that you say that because, again, in all my conversations that I've had on these podcasts, right? People now, I'll ask people like that question, like, oh, where did you find that strength? And they're like, well, I didn't have a choice, right? And I said, well, everybody has a choice. See, you could have chosen not to do it, but you chose to do it, right? So, like, where does that really come from?
I think part of it was my dad.
Did you believe in you had to have believed in, I would think that you had to believe in yourself. Or are you still questioning yourself at that point? Like, I think I can do this. I think I can do it.
I think the difference was, and I say this is more my dad that did this. I was kind of too dumb to know that I shouldn't.
So naivete, right? Maybe?
Yeah, like there was a sort of like a naiveness, like because again, at this point, I'm passing. I question, but you're trying to still be young enough that you believe in the authoritativeness of your parents and in that whole relationship, and no one told me I shouldn't.
Okay.
Right? Like no one said, "Hey, you shouldn't be doing that," because they kind of believed that I was white. So, I kind of got away with with it.
Okay.
And then I didn't know any differently. I didn't know that I shouldn't. I didn't know that what I was doing was, against the grain. I didn't know that until I started asking people when I got to college and university who was paying their way. And they were like, "Oh, my parents just pay everything. They bought me a new car, a brand new Honda." Meanwhile, I'm like, I'm not sure my catalytic converter's making it another day. Like, but in there was also this sense of like, especially when I was in college, like that group of friends, they could still call me and ask me for just about anything. Like they knew I was living off the free crackers that they gave out with soup and honey packets. And there was a guy who worked at the university that I often studied at, even though I didn't go there, I would fall asleep while I was studying overnight. Cause again, he knew how many jobs I worked. He'd bring me tea in the morning.
Wow.
And it turns out I ended up meeting his daughter years later. She was telling me this story about, and I was like, that is me. Right? Like,
wow.
Like she was telling me the story.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is that.
Yeah, you're talking about me.
You're talking about me. And how much of an impact, like just there was a community of people who were just taking care of me, knowing that I was this 17-year-old working around the clock, trying to pay her way through, that had a roommate. I would like get $30 and be like, okay, I can go to the cheap Chinese food place and buy enough food to last the week off $30.
Oh, yeah.
And like get the family meal for $6 on a Tuesday because that's when it went on sale. And he would like eat all the food, and then I'd have no food for the week and things like. So they just like they really rallied behind me.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, if I'm being honest. I think maybe if I like sit here and ponder that, it would be because they knew the struggles from their life growing up and had support at home, even though their life was struggled. They were immigrants. They were new to this country. They were being raised here, but they were still living at home. Most of my friends at this point, like they weren't on their own.
Okay.
They're like, you're just here on your own with nobody. And I think they just felt bad for me. Like, I think I was like the bird with the broken wing. And they were just like,
I'm going to challenge you on that a bit. Cause there's a light, right? And you carry it, right? And that's just a fact. There was a quote. Actually, I was listening to Trevor Noah's Now What podcast. right? And he said something in there that really resonated with me, right? And I want to share it. So this is exactly verbatim what he said. Is that the experiences we have of other people isn't necessarily what they are having of themselves,
Very true.
right? So
Very true.
yeah,
It's funny because on the ride over here, I was speaking to a very dear friend of mine, Nicolette, and this morning, and we were talking about industry stuff and just family stuff as we always do. And she described me in her words, and it's so funny to
did you
hear.
tell her you're coming here to do
I
that?
did. I actually did. And I was like, oh my God, can you please text me that? I don't know if she ever did, but um
Oh.
the and I just thought it's so bizarre that, how people see you. And I'm like, when I say I have gratitude deep in
Mm,
my soul, it is deep in my soul, because I think when you try to really live the values of who you are as a
mm,
person, and my family very much drilled it into my head, like, you never judge somebody by what they are, you judge them by who they are.
amen.
And are you a good witch or a bad witch, kind of was used a lot as we were growing up.
Yeah, yeah.
And the uh, so I'll just say I'm very grateful, but you try to live your values,
Mm-hmm.
and when people recognize those things with you, that's where I think, that's where you get to be the most grateful, is,
Well,
you know, just, like those key messages of do the right thing no matter how difficult it is.
yeah.
It will pay dividends when it's the right thing to do, and you do that.
So we talked about, I talked about in the intro about how people see you in our industry, right? Do you see yourself that way? Do you see yourself as a people first leader? Do you see yourself as intelligent? Do you see yourself as is hardworking, ethical? And if you do, how important is it for you to have people feel that way about you?
I mean, do I feel that way about myself? I try to.
Mm,
I really, really try to. Like I said, I believe that even though the decision is the tough one, that it's the right thing to do. I believe in being a good partner
mm,
in when you're right, like when you're entering into an agreement with somebody, whether
right.
that be marriage, whether that be friendship, whether that be a business arrangement. It's that it's done with the intentions of fulfilling it. And I think if you're going to make that commitment, you honor your commitments. So yes, I try to, and like I said, I'm humbled and ever so grateful when people like say that to me. I'm blown away.
Mm.
I question what other people are doing if people are so leaned in to me on those things.
But that's the light that you carry. Do you see what I'm saying? It's that's the authenticity and the truth that you carry. And you know, I don't think that it's commonplace for a lot of people. I just don't. I think that that's what you that's anyways, and we'll talk about superpowers, but I think that that's part and parcel of just who you are, right? And you're, just
It's certainly who I try to be. And the
mm,
second part of that is like, does it matter to me if
mm,
people see me that
yeah,
way? I think it used to matter when I was in my like growing up, how
mm,
I felt, like people felt about me, how they saw me. I think after I decided to, be a single mom on my own, I had made a lot of changes that I just cut out like anybody that was, you know, adding toxicity to my life.
yeah, yeah,
I was like, I'm not bringing a baby into this.
right,
I need to do better,
yeah,
and it needs to be better. And I think I stopped caring maybe a little bit about how people saw me versus how did I want to not even see myself, how did I want to feel about myself when
mm,
I woke up in the morning. And and that's what started like really taking over, like, because I'm becoming a mom. My life is going to change. Suddenly I'm like, ooh, do I like who I am?
mm,
Do I like
yeah,
what I stand for?
yep,
And do I like the environment that I'm going to bring another human being
right,
into and be responsible for that human being? And I didn't. I didn't like that. So I left, and I, basically started out as less than over, like worse off than when at this point, I'm having to redo everything in my life. But I was just determined to do it right. I was determined to do it. And right is a wide open interpretation, but I was determined to do it in a way that felt right for me.
Right.
And I really started making sure that the people that surrounded me embodied the values in which I valued.
Mm.
And that's difficult to do at 30, single parent. You're already well into your career. You're going through a divorce. There's a lot of stigmatization around that.
Right.
And then being a single parent and the stigma around that at this point now, and and you're like,
Did it bother you? Like, did it really bother you?
yeah, it did.
It did. Yeah.
I didn't tell anyone professionally that I went through a divorce
Mm.
until, again, it was that same boss, Andrew. He never called me out on it. So when he met me, I was already a single parent. We traveled a lot together.
Yeah.
We traveled to Calgary a lot together and for a client. And at some point, he just very kindly on one of those trips said to me, I'm just going to put it out there. Is there if there are days of the week that are easier for you to travel
Mm.
because of childcare or anything else like that?
Right.
He's like, I have a stay-at-home wife who's a stay-at-home mom and a lot of support. And even though I prefer to travel on these days because I coach my sons and my kids like volleyball and his daughter's volleyball and his son's hockey and things like that. He's like, there is another coach. So I could miss the odd game here and there. It's not a problem to do so if that's going to
No.
make your life easier. And he didn't say why. He didn't call it out. He wasn't overt about it. He was just the kind of guy who knew he, at this point, had I'm pretty sure she's single and I'm pretty sure she's doing this on her own. And Uncle Mark would stay with my son whenever I was traveling. And so certainly there were days of the week that were easier for him.
Yeah.
And things like that. And so I was very grateful for that and shifted it around the days of the week. But that was the first time I had ever admitted that I was even divorced and a single parent beyond the one or two people I worked with that I was friends with.
Was it because you felt, and I want to put words in your mouth, but was it like I failed at something and I didn't want people to know? What was that stopped you from having that transparency about?
So there was a few things. At the time, the company culture where I was, but this is again pre-Andrew.
Right.
He dramatically, made a lot of improvements to that company culture, something he's very proud of today, and he should be. Underneath that leadership, but prior to that, anything that could be held against you would be held against you in the court of. But I also wasn't prepared to talk about why I was divorced either, because when the little bit of experience that I had with my cousin's wedding, she had her wedding in Jamaica, and I had a lot of people there be like, who divorces you?
Hmm.
And I was like, who's to say that I wasn't the one that left?
Yeah.
So it, and they were just judging me based on what they saw, but it was perplexing to people, and I didn't want to, I wasn't prepared to talk about what I had endured at that point and what that was like. And so I was very, between those two things, I was very closed with it outside of my very tight personal network.
Okay. I was part of putting together the questions for you, and I read things and quotes, and I thought there's a really great quote from Winston Churchill, right? It says, success is the ability to go from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. And right? So I'm thinking now, right? 30-year-old Nikki to who she is today. Have you changed? Are you less guarded? Are you more transparent? Are you this is life, man? And I'm just going to go through this life journey.
Oh, the most transparent about my life
Yeah, yeah.
now, and about the failures I went through and what that was like and what my journey was like. And again, a lot, and it's funny because a lot of that came from the support of my husband, but was something that he also struggled with.
Mm.
Just, talking about his life today.
Yeah,
And I was like, and I had to say to him at one point, I'm like, it's okay to just talk about this is your life. Like,
yeah.
and it's riddled with privilege right now, and I understand that, and like we're so blessed. We're also both ridiculously hardworking. That man makes me feel lazy every day. I have no idea where he gets that kind of fuel from. I can't keep up. I wouldn't even try to keep up.
And he's so chill,
So
right?
chill.
Like he's so chill. Like it's amazing. He's got such a like you guys are like a yin and yang a little bit, like he kind of you guys balance each other out.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah, I'm the way more like, and I am definitely less chill than he is. No questions about that. And yet, if you know us, I'm the recluse introvert, and he's actually
You see, and that blows my mind
he
because you
was
would think
actually like the super extrovert, life of the party. Like,
that's so funny because yeah, at first glance you would think it would be opposite.
yes,
100%.
100%. But those are also our work, like, because of our work personas. Like, I have to be outgoing in my work persona. He works alone a lot of the times. He doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
So he has to,
Yeah.
he engages with people and stuff like that. So it's just sort of
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, that
those are
makes sense.
your work personas
That
that you
makes sense.
have to do in order to do your job that you love to do.
Yeah. Really?
And it's not that I don't enjoy it. I very much enjoy it. But when I need to recharge, it is in like deep, dark isolation. Like it will sit in my room for hours.
I feel the exact same way, the exact same way, and I always thought it was something that I was just like, am I weird? Like, and I feel like you got to put all this energy out, right, in our industry. Like, you got to. I've there's so many times like I have to literally power down
Yes.
if I knew something, like if I know something's coming up,
Yes.
right, and I just have to give myself that space, right. And that's why I found meditation and being able to just clear my mind and get calm, and then I can go perform. Because I feel like it's a performance. I do.
I mean, listen, you're right. There is some of that to some degree, absolutely. Because there's a lot of like, I was on stage this week and talking, and you're trying to make sure that you're being engaging. And so you have to definitely bring the energy that comes with that. But
100%.
The collapse afterwards, I could never. I have so much admiration for like actors and actresses and things like that. And I could never. I couldn't even imagine trying to take on a completely different persona for years at a time.
I know.
And then trying to stay true to who you are in that whole process. Like, what a wild, like, I'm like, wow, that is wild.
Yeah, on that world stage like that, people have this expectation of who you are. Even they'll make that association from whatever characters you've played or whatever, and they think that that's you, and you could be completely opposite. Like Julia Roberts got shit for years because, right? She's like, no, like this is my life. This is my work. It's separate. Leave me alone, right? And people know they want full access to you. So I just see like how often I hear you. I talk to you sometimes, and you're like, okay, I got this going on, that going on. I'm like, look, we had dinner like a few weeks ago, right? And it's like, when do you like how many nights a week are you out, right? So,
professionally, 2. I try to cap it at 2. Sometimes it's 3, but I really try.
It's so hard to balance.
That it's very difficult to balance.
Your wife, you've got 2 boys, like you've got like things going on. You got this crazy career. That kind of leads me into, there's a book that I read, and we go back and forth on these books, right? And there was a book by, and I don't want to butcher his last name. It's Bruce Feilers, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. And it's Life is in the Transitions, right? And what stood out for me is he said, shit happens in life that you just can't plan for. He calls it life quakes. Yeah. Right. So my question to you is like, how do you deal with those life quakes? Like, how do you, like, I mean, we've talked about a lot of them so far today, right? But like, are
you saying I've had a few?
Yeah. Yeah. Just a few. Right. But as I'm asking that question, I'm almost like, oh my God, like she's already told me how she deals with these life quakes. But I really want to dig into like, how do you reconcile it in your mind? Like, do you go, well, this is it. This is life. I'm just going to keep moving forward. Or do you have to, like, if something bad happens, you have to sit in it, and dwell in it and then come out from it?
I think that depends on the ref.
Yeah.
Okay. Usually I don't take a lot of dwell time, and I'll tell you why. My position on failure is quite interesting. I believe so. I love innovation. No surprise there. You called me curious. That it definitely is one way I would describe myself. My mom used to say to me as a kid, and my dad used to say this to her: "Curiosity killed the cat." And my
Oh
mom
yeah.
would respond, "But satisfaction brought it back."
Ooh, I like that.
And I and that it kind of sticks. I think curiosity is everything.
Mm,
With being curious, you naturally want to challenge things that you think could be better.
yep.
And with that, you have to be prepared for failure. But failure is interesting because when we think about failure, we think about it, oh, as it didn't succeed. But
Mhm.
what we don't often think about is failure as a reset. And if you think about every time you win, so think about soccer. I played soccer. I was a goalie for soccer. And every time there's a goal on you or someone else, failure is on you,
Mhm.
right? Victory is on someone else.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. You start at the same reset line
Yep.
every time.
Yeah.
So win or lose in
Yeah.
whatever that part of the journey was, you have to go back and reset.
Yeah.
So if you think about failure in the context of, as part of the process
Yeah.
of the reset, less about failure, but the reset as part of the process in order to get to the end of the game where you may or may not be victorious. It
I like
it
that.
starts to change how you feel about failure and
And how you
um,
perceive yourself, maybe.
how you perceive yourself
Yeah.
and how you start to. So we talk a lot about imposter syndrome. We talk and that and how and it's something I mentor a lot of people to around. And I've worked with corporations on how to be more innovative within their organizations. But a lot
Mm.
of that is getting over imposter syndrome and how do you course correct that anyway. And people will say to me, how do you as a leader, how have you been able to foster this with your teams? And it's because building in the reset is part of the plan, right? Like when you start to build it, the game, right? There's the resets. The ref blows the whistle, you reset.
Yeah.
There's a stop, whether you're throwing it from the sideline, whether you're doing a corner kick,
I love
whether
that.
it's like a pet, like whatever sport you want to tie that to, there's always a reset. There's always the whistle. There's always going to be that. So where are you in that journey? And have you built that in and have you trained for it?
Yep.
Athletes train for it. So how is that any different? I talk about this the same way I talk about mental
Mm.
health, right? Like you can't always be great. I suffer from anxiety and depression. I've already admitted that. And I talk about this a lot. It's part of that reset. So
Mm.
just like you said, hey, I know I have to go do this thing and it's going to be draining. I need to reset.
Yep.
Right. So you instinctually already do this. And it's all, I think about it as mental health as an athlete, failure as an athlete.
Mm.
What makes you good at this is the more you train for it.
Yeah.
And that's really where I think that big difference lies with me and why I don't dwell on it. I had a boss tell me, same boss actually, Andrew, you can tell he was impactful in my life. As I was learning to be the leader that I wanted to be, he brought in great people, my girlfriend Kim, who I met there. And they really taught me a lot about these things that were like, and he said to me, you loathe the loss like nothing I've ever seen, and you seldom celebrate the victories.
Mm.
And he was always trying to get me to celebrate the victories better. And I still struggle a little bit with that, with like the self victory. And I give it to the team. I absolutely do, because I'm everything I've been talking about is team sports, team related. Yes, you have your position in there. Maybe you are the last person in the net, which has always been my stance and where I played. But maybe that is, when I raced go-karts, I was the driver, but you had a pit crew. Like you still had crews that were part of that with you. You won together, you lost together.
Yep.
And you gave them as much of the credit in that as you would accept for yourself, probably more so because you know that you can't get there alone. And so failure to me is just about, it's this, I think about it all the same, like build the reset. If
Mm.
you want to drive that forward, you need to say, okay, come to me with your best, but know that we're going to pull it apart as a team. We're going to, poke holes in it. Then we're going to come back with the best again.
So this is
And then your
always
line change up. Same thing, right?
this is really interesting because we're I was leading you into a question about being a C-suite female leader and if there was any additional pressure that you felt to be, so to be one way or the other. Because if you're too, if you are too nice, air quote, right, then you are soft on people. If you are too assertive, then you could be, labeled as difficult, right? And that to me is really interesting because, as a black man in corporate Canada, kind of go through the exact same thing, right? Like, if I'm too assertive, it could be aggressive, right? And if I'm not, then I'm just, kind of shuffled off as, yeah, he's a nice guy kind of thing, right? Do you find that as a female leader at the top of the game, right? At where you are, like do those principles still apply to you, or have you shed that as well?
So I actually have an anomaly right now that has never happened to me before.
Okay.
I have a black boss.
Yes, I know who
Um,
he is.
and he has done phenomenal things in this space to right from bringing Launchpad into Canada and bringing people of all walks of life and all education levels into our industry because they bring so much value in their learning. So we had like people from law school, we had people from Italy, we had people from there was a guy who was doing construction on the building that we are, and he found out about the program and he applied.
Wow.
So, like, when I say it is vast and wide, and some of the most ridiculously talented people I've ever met in my life
Mm.
that they recruit into this. So, like, it's very near and dear. And he also grew up in like the Bronx, and he'll tell his story. I'm not here to tell it for him,
Yep.
but
Yep.
he grew up in a pretty similar sort of situation, and probably how we bonded
Yep.
about
Yep.
20 years ago in my career. So I yes to answer your question, but no to because I think I'm in a really interesting spot right now where there is a lot of diversity at the leadership level where I am, and that is rare, very rare, and very appreciated. But I've been called all of those names at some point
Right.
along my journey.
Yep.
I think I think my size, funny enough, actually plays a bit of homage as to why I can be sometimes a little bit brasher. And it's eh, not as probably predominant as it might be for you,
Yeah. Yeah.
being a black man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm shorter than average, slightly smaller than average. My 15-year-old son is definitely bigger than me in every capacity, like, and picks me up and carries me around the house as a
Yeah.
fun game.
Yeah.
Like, so I think people don't, there's no like that intimidation
Mm.
factor that can come for other people is less there with me
Yep.
from a physical standpoint. From a mental standpoint, I've been told they're like, "Oh yeah, you're scary," but for a whole different reason. Because I can call the shit out quickly
Yeah.
and be like, "That's not going to work. That's bullshit,"
Yeah.
and will. But I, if it was there, I've been I've been protected over the years
Okay.
from some of that because of some really great leaders.
Wow.
And many of them white men. Like I worked for this guy, Mark Bordeaux, twice. He was phenomenal. I told you enough about Andrew. I've talked publicly and openly about working for Jeff Thibodeau and how much I absolutely loved working for him.
Right.
So I think it was, I think because of the leaders I had and still have to this day, and some of that by design, right? I've chosen where
Yeah.
I've gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always said this, right? Whether it's professionally or personally, your life can take a turn in either direction, really, really good or horribly, depending on the people that you surround yourself with, right? So if you get into your point, you get to work with really great people, right, that are supportive, right, and willing to mentor or sponsor or just be really collaborative. It gives you an opportunity to really grow and to blossom in yourself, right? And then when you do that, then I think that you get to a place in life where you actually value yourself. You see the value because other people saw it. You see it in yourself, and you start to grow and grow, as a person. So you're blessed and that's a great story. And all those names that you mentioned, good on them, really good on them.
Yeah, I mention them by design because
Yeah.
I want people to know that these are good people to work for. These are
Mm,
great people to learn under. These are people who have values and ethics deep in their core, and they really want to do great things.
hmm. So answer me a question. because I'm going to read you a stab. But I'm going to ask you a question first, right? What are your thoughts on personal core values? Like, have you written them down? If so, when did you write them down? Right, and how important they are they to you?
So yeah, I have written out my core values. When started this when I was 30, if you couldn't figure out, that was a pretty life-changing moment in our period of time in my life.
Hmm.
And I started when I was 30. Actually, my therapist at the time, again, now I think my son at this point is like 1 or 2. And we're, and I just wanted to make sure I didn't screw up my kid.
Hmm.
So she's trying to work with me on how to be, you know, the mom I want to be.
Right.
And what a crazy thing to go to therapy for. But not, I'd say that's it with sarcasm.
Yeah, no, right? It's like,
The But that was really important to me. And I don't know that a lot of moms get that opportunity, or a lot of parents get that opportunity because of the situations that they're in.
yeah.
And
You mean to go to therapy or to actually be mindful enough to write down their core values? Oh,
oh,
both.
so
You're
that's
right.
something that she tasked me with, and then I revisited them every year, and I still do. I
Wow.
do vision boarding, and I write and I go over my personal life business plan, and then at some point when I was at Publicis, they did this female empowerment offsite for the leaders,
Okay.
like the up and coming, like the women of the organization. And they made us do our values professionally.
Mhm.
And that was the first time I had thought about my values professionally
Mhm.
and what mattered. And then a few years later, they started becoming, these are just my values, both personally and professionally. This is
Yes.
who I am and where I am comfortable and confident and where I want to put my energy. So I still do. I revisit. I haven't changed them in actually years now. Every year I look at them again. I do my vision board for the year. I think about what I want to achieve. I look at my values and all of those things, and I review my personal life business plan.
Yeah.
And there's boxes checked off,
Mm.
but the core parts have really not changed. Once I really was like, no, this is just who I am. And this is who I continue to want to be. So everything I put my energy around are those things.
You see, that's so interesting because I think I mentioned earlier, right, that as I was putting the pieces of the puzzle together and why I was putting these pieces of the puzzle together, right, I looked at self perception, I looked at core values, I looked at superpowers, goals, and ultimately how do I become fulfilled because it was lacking in my world, right? And core values, true story. I didn't start writing down core values until like a few years ago, like literally, right?
I
You know,
actually remember when you did that for the first time.
right?
Like,
And
you were
that,
talking to me about it.
yeah,
And I was
yeah,
like, it's dope.
right. But like God, like I was like, how old? Like why did it take me all of this time, right? Then I recently read a stat that said only between 5 to 10% of the population actually write down their core values. That's crazy.
Because no one tells them that they should.
But exactly, right? And this is exactly like when I think of legacy as a podcast, when I think about just having great conversations with people and digitizing and documenting and celebrating it, like to me, like this has been a celebration of who you are and the things that you've gone through, right? And who you've come out on the other end as so far. And of course, life will continue to evolve. And I say, if we're not evolving and growing, then we might as well be on the other side of the grass, right? So the buck doesn't stop here, but I just find it really, really interesting that you've done all of this work to get, and it's brought you to who you are today.
Listen, you're right. I've done a lot of work, and it's gritty and it's hard. And if I can tell anyone anything, like from my journey through this, I tend not to spew out a lot of unsolicited advice, but the only way is through,
Mm,
right? If you try to go around it,
yep.
if you try to go
Yep.
around it, you're never going to build up that endurance. that you
Yep.
need. If you're walking through the muddy waters,
It's hard work.
there's restriction,
Yeah.
right? It's the resistance that's in there. Just like you would put on a resistance band when you're training, like an athlete would be training, just like swimmers use resistance gloves.
Yep.
All of these things, you're working through your resistance training. The only way to get to overcome it is to go through it. You have to go through it. You have to do the gritty, meaty, hard work. You have to be introspective. You have to look at all of your flaws, all of the bits about yourself that you don't like and care for, and start asking the why. And then once you understand why, you really have to then do the next part, which is like reset and heal.
Yeah.
Right? Is it my time to leave the field? Am I now better as a coach? Am I now again, you can so much of this, right? Whether that's an individual sport or a group sport, you can really lean into that of like, if you're a runner, you have a running coach, you might have a running team, you might, right? Like it's not an anomaly, but the only way to get to the end is to do it.
Yep.
So you have a choice to make. Are you going to do the hard work? And it's painful. I'm here to not pretend for anybody. It is painful. It is emotional. Those emotions can stay stored in your body. We talk like somatic yoga is like a really big craze right now for a reason, as people are trying to release stored trauma.
Yep.
Right? Like, how are you getting rid of that and what you're carrying so that you can be lighter and freer in order to do the things that you want to do? But you got to go through it to get there. And every time you score a goal, you still need to pause, acknowledge, give yourself the little fist bump, but you're going back to the reset line. So now ask yourself, am I in the right spot? Am I the right player? Yeah. Is there somebody who's going to take it the next half better than I am? Should I move to a different position on the field?
Ah, interesting. So in that, I also see, identifying your superpowers as part of that, right? Because that gives you that mindfulness to do what you just said. Do I need to go to play a different role here, right? How do I view myself, right? So when I talk about these superpowers, right, I'd love to get your perspective on what you think yours are.
So I think first of all, you need to pause and say, sometimes that depends on where you are. So you could start at a new company and suddenly, the role in which you've been playing is maybe not the role you need to be playing on that team, because there are people who are smarter than you, thankfully, in those ancillary spots around you as part of your leadership team, up, over, but side and on downward, like all of it. And you think, okay, well, how do I make this better? Well, I'm not going to try and strip away things because I personally like it from somebody who's thriving and doing a phenomenal job at that. I want to empower them to run further and figure out how I can now help them move obstacles out of their way. So your position changes. That's where I said now it might be more of a coach in that. Now, but not everyone likes to be led the same. So that's also part of the problem. Some people really like to be micromanaged. I hate managing people who need to be micromanaged.
Yeah, it is too.
It is so not intuitive to me.
Yeah.
If that's what they need, by all means, then I need a buffer.
But
I need to get you the right leader for that.
Though.
So you're asking me about my superpower.
Yes. Come on, Nikki.
I think it is seeing it differently. I think it's my curiosity. I think that is because I'm curious, I see things differently.
Yeah.
And I think that just becomes part of that superpower. If I were to have one, that is
do. You definitely, everyone has them. So you definitely have it. It's the thing that you're innately good at. The thing and what throws people off when I ask them this question is because we take what we do innately really well, right? Unless it's a hard skill, right? Most people don't really value it. So, for example, you could have told me a superpower is I'm a whiz at math. Just to say, right? Because,
I am, but I know people who are better at math than me.
But it's still something that is innately unique to you, right? Because it comes natural to you, right? Right, and you get it. But if I said to you, if you were sitting in front of me and you were like an Olympic swimmer, or you were an international pop star, or professional sports, athlete. People get that, right? Immediately. That's my superpower. But the things that aren't those hard skills, right? To me, I think this is the things that people struggle with the most, right? I know I did, right? To really identify. And I've been doing this with my kids lately. Go home and do this with your kids. Ask them that, right? Because I think it's just my theory. If we can get you to start identifying what you're really good at, value it, right? Own it, right? That's going to really help you with your self-perception, right? And of who you are.
I did. It's funny that you say that because I did ask.
Oh, did you? Okay.
And I got a bunch of different answers when I asked this. One person said to me that we've talked about this, the Friend of Nikki network. That's kind of a joke.
Yeah.
Where people are like, oh, friend of Nikki. Oh, got it. Oh,
Yeah.
that's why you're cool.
Yeah.
But not cool in the sense of like, oh, like the old school Fonzie kind of like cool status, but like cool as in good people.
Yeah.
And so one person said to me, your superpower is literally that you can see through people's bullshit, like nothing I've ever seen. And so therefore, good people.
Yeah.
Another person
That's
said to
hugely
me,
valuable to me.
Another person said to me that my superpower was, they were like, when they're like, when I first met you and everyone that I've talked to just says that there's a comfort because you don't judge people. Right. You accept people for who they are and who they want to be. Whether that I agree with those things is another POV, but I'm not here to judge what's right or wrong. I'm not here to tell. I know my moral compass. But the reason I didn't go into law is because of that moral compass, because it was far too gray for me.
Yeah.
And, I know life happens in the gray. So but Debbie Benediva, another wonderful person, and said on a panel when she introduced me, she was like, can you just not, there's like a warmth. Like you feel safe when, she's like, I just immediately feel safe when I'm with you. Like I know that no matter what, you've got my back. And, I think I'm all of those things, and I'm so happy. Like what kind words. But yeah, I think that all really stems, if I look at it, from just seeing the world differently, seeing life differently.
Yeah. Yes. And everything you just said, I agree with. Like, I would say, there's definitely an authenticity about you. And I talk about that light, right? The light that you carry, that makes people, all those results of that light, right? Like people feel warm, people feel comfortable, right? They can sit down and have a conversation with you and it's real and you're not being judged, and I think like that to me is the thing that then you've got to figure out, okay, what else, right? What else about myself? What can I own here? Would you say, you're analytical? You say curious. I've said curious. Are you analytical?
I'm definitely analytical.
Yeah.
I'm such a data nerd. I love data. And I think because math was always like, there was a truth in math. There was a truth in the numbers in a world where the truth was not given to me, in a world where the truth was very much hidden from me deliberately. I was always like this, like on this quest for truth, I felt like. And so math was like one of those areas that there was a truth to. There was a definitive number. There was a right or wrong answer. And that then as you get into statistics, which, is not truth, it's statistics.
Yeah.
It's the only truth in statistics is that you can create a stat about anything.
Right.
But I started to really, in post-secondary life, get into a lot of statistical courses and things like that to understand how to read data and interpret the data. But the curiosity still fueled that, because I love to know the human behavior that forever changed, or a series of events. Like what happened to make these lines collide suddenly when they had always been on a very similar or parallel trajectory? Like what was that point? And so, yeah, I love data.
It's just, it's interesting. You said something, and I just want to just highlight it, that math there's truth in math, and that you spend your life trying to get answers. Right. And so integrity is really, pops in my mind, right? Like that's a big thing for you, right? Like, because of you felt maybe it lacked that in your life.
And I want to be clear. I do not always get it right.
No, of course. None
No
of us
one
do.
gets it right
Yeah, yeah.
100% of the
Yeah, yeah.
time. It's just whether or not the intention, that's the part that I think we have to measure. What was the intention of the action?
Yeah.
Right?
So let me ask you another question here. Would you consider yourself an overachiever?
So the first time I heard that,
Yeah.
somebody say that to me was I was taking my motorcycle license, and the instructor, I got perfect on the score, and she was like, I will ride with you any day. And then one of the girls beside me looked at me and she's like, classic overachiever. And I didn't really understand that. I would not consider myself instinctually an overachiever.
Why?
Because who set the standard of what was the over-under?
Okay, it's a good question. I think in this part of the world where we live in, it's set by, how hard you're willing to work, right? What titles you have, where you live, how much money you earn, right? Not that that's right, but that's, that kind of, to me, is kind of like where and our societal norm says over above this line becomes an overachiever.
Okay, so then, I mean, if that's the line, sure, I guess I'm going to be classified as an overachiever. I would classify that as somebody who thoroughly enjoys living.
No.
And for somebody who suffers with depression and anxiety, the enjoyment of living is sometimes difficult. But I really you said this, how do you find the time? It's not finding the time, it's prioritizing the things that you want to do. I have not done nearly enough. I have not, and that's not a title, a pay, a something.
Yeah.
It is how much of the world have I seen? How much of the world have I shown my kids? How much of that how much of my own curiosity have I scratched the surface to? I kind of just love learning. So
you strike me as a person that sets goals.
goals.
So how do you walk me through how you set goals? Is it annually? Is it like I got my 3-year plan, my 5-year plan, my 10-year plan? Like how do you set goals?
Well, I told you I have a life business plan.
Yes.
It is called, it was funny enough, it's called the Good Plan. Get out of Dodge. GOOD.
I hear that.
And that's really like what I was trying to do. So my whole goal in life, so backtrack for a second, I've never known what I wanted to do when I grew up. I knew at one point I wanted to be a lawyer, but I wanted to be in free trade law. Like I wanted to work on free trade agreements. Which I
that's
understand.
very specific.
Yeah, I'm very specific. I remember now I'm in the 90s and there's like the NAFTA agreements happening, and I saw our waterways and our Canada's freedoms towards our Great Lakes being outsourced, and like just some weird things that are being talked about. And I'm living close to the border, so I'm seeing a lot of this, probably truer than most Canadians might have. And for being the scientist that my dad is and was, there also, I told you that he was a hippie, so we grew up saving the turtles and all of that stuff, and camping a lot and being one with nature. So that was always an important factor of who I was growing up. And here I am. Like, here's the sort of net of that. And I just think when you prioritize happiness, and happiness comes when you live your values, and traveling and exploring and curiosity, those are all part of my values. And the experiences that you learn by being immersed in another culture, in another part of the world, and keeping yourself out of your comfort zone. There's so much to be said about, right? Like
100%.
And I think that's just because I literally want to live every day. Like we talked about walking, like we both walk. I walk at night, you walk in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to burn out the last bit of energy before I go to bed. And that's it. I go every day until I drop. And sometimes that's 2:00. Like that could be 2:00 on a Saturday afternoon. Wow. Yesterday, I went up to my room at 6:00 on a Friday night by myself and just was like shut the world right off, because that's what I needed. So that varies every day. Sometimes it's 2 a.m. if that's what needs to be done in order to get done what you need to get done. But you keep going, because there's so much I want to do and see and experience.
So those goals that you set, though, like those personal goals and professional goals, right? Right? Are they done with in the same vein? Like, so I'm making, this is my annual goal. This is what I want to accomplish in 5 years from now.
So no, professionally and personally, they are different because
Okay.
I'm employed, I'm an employee. And so I have a job to do.
Yeah.
So my goals also need to ladder up into whatever corporate goals I'm reporting into, or I sit on a lot of boards, whatever the board wants me to achieve, things like that. So those are kinds of, even though the path to get there is not defined, the goal might be defined. Prop up this new new
Yeah.
commerce division, et cetera. Like,
No, I meant like see how you've taken, and we talked about this in your intro, like how you've gone from, VP, SVP, EVP, managing director. Let's go. Like, do you set goals to say
no,
I want to hit all these marks?
no.
Okay, they just
I've
they just happen like organically.
Yes.
Okay,
I've
that's good
I've
to know.
never
Well,
asked
thanks for
for a
sharing that.
promotion.
Okay,
Never once. And yet every company
it
I've
keeps
ever,
happening to you.
yes. And it's not been for lack of being unhappy with where I was in those moments either, because I've always really enjoyed what I was doing in those moments. But when you work for a company,
Yeah,
they're also going to in part tell you where they want you
yeah,
next.
yeah, 100%, 100%. So would you say that you're fulfilled?
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely I am. I think I'm done being fulfilled? No.
right.
But my life is very fulfilling right now.
So what do you attribute that feeling of fulfillment to right now?
Are all of your cues in check?
Okay,
You have your IQ, your EQ, and your CQ in my mind.
okay.
The
And for our audience, please share what that means.
Well, your IQ is your IQ. So
Right?
that's how are you stimulating
Yep.
your growth and intelligence? Your EQ is your emotional
Yep.
intelligence. And so how are you growing emotionally as a human and as a person? And then there's your CQ, which is your common sense.
Love it.
And
Thank
I
you.
don't know that that's actually a thing, by the way. It's just how it is in my brain.
It's your
The-
thing. You own it.
but it's how does all of that then tie into the practicality of how you can apply that in the environment you're in?
I love it. So this is the part where we start to wind down our conversation, and I've got 12 questions. 12.
Well,
And my challenge to you is to answer them in one sentence or one word. You ready to play?
I think I'm ready to play.
Yeah?
I think so.
Okay.
Go.
What is the one thing you're struggling with right now?
Being a mom,
What keeps you up at night?
mostly my children.
What's your greatest fear?
Something happening to my children.
What's your greatest regret?
Not having enough body positivity early, especially probably until more recently in life.
Okay. What inspires you?
Born between people and nature.
Who inspires you?
Oh, my grandmother-in-law is 98. She's a huge source of my life inspiration right now and has definitely taken the place from my Nona, who was a big part of my inspiration growing up.
Who is your safe person? I know the
My
answer.
husband.
Do you have a mentor or a sponsor?
Not at the moment. I'm actually on a quest for a new one right now, but I almost always do.
What do you look forward to?
I'm with friends.
Does death scare you?
Death in terms of the afterlife, no. But death in terms of dying before I've scratched all of those curiosities,
Yep.
yes.
Okay. Here's a good one, I thought. If you could go back and speak to your younger self, what would you say to her?
Odd.
This might be more than one sentence.
It's probably you're right. It's more than one sentence. I would tell her that it's okay that you endure a lot, a lot. Your life is not going to be easy, but you're going to go through it.
Mm.
Don't fear going through it. You come out stronger every time the other side.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of the deep work, and continue to be who you are, because really it's not until you embrace who you are that your life gets good. So if I could give one piece of advice to my younger self, which was not the question, it would be, what do I say to myself? I say, it's okay. You're going to be okay. It's okay. You can, but if I had one piece of advice for my younger self, it would be, it's okay to make a few mistakes. You're going to make some bad decisions, make a few more. You're entitled to make a few more and have some more fun, and just a totally 100% embrace the quirky, slightly awkward human that you are, because I promise you, once you do, your life gets so much better.
Wow. Okay. Last question. How do you want to be remembered at the end of your life journey?
How do I want to be remembered? I want to be remembered by my kids as the mom that they needed. I want to be remembered by others that I helped, that maybe I'm a small footnote that helped them find their path to their journey, and that they were able to be fun and fulfilled because they were able to get there quicker.
I like that. I like that a lot. So this is the end of our podcast, and I can't tell you how much I appreciated your time this morning. And I end every podcast with a quote, and and I couldn't land on one for you, to be honest with you. And there was one when you just said something. There was one from Issa Rae, and I took it out, but it just totally just spoke to like what you just said, and I was like, damn, why did I take it out? But that being said, here's the quotes I have for you. Right, two of them are from one of the greatest show persons in the world, an athlete, Muhammad Ali. He goes, "In my mind, if my mind can conceive it, if my heart can believe it, then I can achieve it." And that's how I feel about you, right? Like,
Solid.
right?
I mean, Ali was like, Ali, like
I just when I and I didn't know like your full story, but like just the way you've lived your life, right? Like you couldn't see leaving Niagara Falls at 17, right? And how it would turn out, but there was something inside of you that believed that you were going to get there no matter what, right? I think so anyways. So that's why I came up with that one. The second quote was, "He who is not courageous enough to take risk will accomplish nothing in life."
true. So true.
Right?
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to throw it all on the line. You got to be willing to walk away.
Yeah.
You got to be able to
It's your life.
yeah. You
Not once, not twice. Like you know what I mean? Like you've done that. You stick handle your way through all kinds of things and showed incredible strength, right? Fortitude. And this is my last one.
Fortitude. Great word. $10 word.
If your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you're an excellent leader. There it is. There it is.
That is honestly I think if there was a quote, those are all beautiful quotes, by the way. I love that you're a book nerd like I am. But that one, if there was one thing that I think I tried to sum up and when you asked me that, that's sort of it.
Yeah.
All I could ever hope is that no one tells anyone that they can't or they shouldn't or that it's not their right.
Yeah.
They're not the right person to do that. And so how do we enable that?
It makes you good people, Nikki Stone.
Thank you, sir. The feeling is very much mutual.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that's it. That's a wrap. Thank you for tuning into the Who Project today. I hope our conversation has sparked a fire within you to reflect on your core values and the intentional choices that will define your journey. If you felt inspired by this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a boost of inspiration. Remember, your values are your guiding star. Let them lead you to a life brimming with purpose and fulfillment. Until next time, I'm PG, urging you to lead with what truly matters to you the most. And before I sign off, I want you to remember this. When you define who you are, you will discover the success you deserve.